All right, Cybrarians, welcome. I'm glad you've decided to attend the Cloud Certified Security Professional course. I'm Kelly Handerhan, just like in the introduction, and we're going to go ahead and get right on into the material. And of course, we'll start with Domain 1. So Domain 1 is architectural concepts and design requirements. In this particular chapter, what we're going to look at is we're going to start off with the basics, because we know sometimes folks are new to cloud computing, even though they may have an extensive security background. Concepts of the cloud are relatively new, so we want to make sure everybody understands where we are sort of in the grand scheme of things. So we're going to start with the basics. We'll talk about the deployment models. We'll talk about the various services. So when we say deployment, we're talking public versus private cloud with services, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. And then one of the ways that I think that I've found to describe it that I think helps to pull all that together is by looking at pizza as a service. I feel like if there's anything you can use pizza to explain, it always goes better. Big pizza fan. All right, and then we're going to look at the Cloud Computing Standards Roadmap, which is defined by NIST 500-291, which is one of their special publications. This is a document that you can download for free, and I would highly recommend that you do, and that you go through it with a highlighter and marker and just kind of underline those key elements. We'll be covering the main pieces, of course, that are on that roadmap, but it's always good to get your information straight from the horse's mouth. So I would definitely, and I'm not going to be one of those instructors that says, if you'll download 1,500 pages and read those, you'll be just fine. I would download the NIST Cloud Computing Standards Roadmap, NIST 500-291. All right, and then we'll talk about just some general security requirements in relation to cloud computing. And for those of you that have taken CISSP or even Security Plus, you'll find a lot of the same principles that exist on our internal network apply to the cloud as well. We may just be scaling up, or we may have a slightly different perspective, but security. We keep going back to the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All right, we will also talk just a little bit about identity and access management. That is always going to be the responsibility of the organization, of the cloud customer, right? And that's how you should perceive yourself on this exam and in this course. Consider yourself as the cloud customer unless you're told differently. They might have you answer a couple of questions from the cloud service provider's perspective, but otherwise just assume you're a customer. So when we talk about the customer, I'm using the resources in the cloud, and I need to allow my internal users to access those cloud resources. So how I create the identities of those cloud users, how I require them to authenticate, all of those mechanisms are under the responsibility of me, the customer. So we're going to look at those. And then last but not least, we're going to get just a little bit into virtualization, because when it comes right down to it, that's the only reason that the cloud has exploded the way that it has, right? It wasn't profitable. I mean, we've had cloud computing for 30 years, longer than that. We've had cloud computing since I've been around and then some, because when we talk about the cloud, we're just storing information on someone else's computer, right? I mean, that is kind of the cloud. So, if you've used email for the last 30 years or however many, that's cloud computing. But that wasn't really where organizations made their money, right? Like Yahoo didn't make a ton of money by Kelly Handerhan having an email account. They sold ads and they did other things, but on the whole, just making all these services available for free isn't profitable. But once virtualization came around and they could have this massive computing system and deal out pieces or portions of that large computing environment and sell those spaces and those resources, that's where the money came in. So it really took virtualization to make that possible and, most importantly, profitable.